Welcome, I'm Fort Zackary. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. As this crazy political year comes to an end, I hope both sides, but especially Democrats, reevaluate and tone down their divisive and dangerous rhetoric about President Trump. Take your pick of examples, calling Trump a racist, quotes out of context, Project 2025, the dirty dossier and Russian collusion, anything that comes out of AOC or Adam Schiff's mouths. I hope people do their own research and learn to just ignore the flat-out lying leftist lamestream media, just like that media has selectively ignored Trump's, and Biden's for that matter, pre-2016 history. It is not good for the United States, with many Americans now saying we've never been so divided. Well, I like to remind my high school students, in fact, we have been so divided. It has all happened before. I have made a year's worth of This Day in History shorts to educate and illustrate that. For examples, check out my This Day in History shorts about Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr, John Quincy Adams and Andrew Jackson, the birth of the Democratic and Republican parties, Grant's fight against the KKK, the selection of President Rutherford B. Hayes, or his attempted impeachment. That is why we have sayings like, "Don't let history repeat itself." And while things have always gone dark from time to time, the United States always finds its way back to the light. Although I think Winston Churchill said it best, you can always count on Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. So let me close out the year by going back to what I opened with, the media lying about Trump, and share one more example of how this has all happened before. Back during the Civil War, there were two types of Northern Democrats: war Democrats who wanted to preserve the Union, and peace Democrats who wanted an immediate negotiated settlement with the South. These latter Northern Democrats also went by the name Copperheads, as in the poisonous eastern copperhead snake. They worked to undermine the North, encouraged Northern soldiers to desert the Union Army, and incited violence and resistance to the draft, like in New York, forcing President Lincoln to pull resources off the front line to keep order at home and retake New York City from the mob. The rhetoric from the Copperhead Democratic media outlets of the day was truly stunning. One example, literally too shocking to mention, or TikTok will ban this video, is what Marcus M. Pomeroy, editor of the Wisconsin Lacrosse Democrat, wrote and called for regarding Lincoln before the 1864 election during the Civil War. You'll have to look that one up yourself. Think what almost happened to Trump twice. One I can share, This Day in History, December 31st, 1863, the New York World published as a 72-page pamphlet, Miscegenation, the Theory of the Blending of the Races, applied to American white man and N-word. The pamphlet was sold to the public as a sincere advocacy on the virtues of interracial relationships and put forth as a social policy goal of the official Republican Party. I'm thinking Steele dossier here. At the time, most Northerners, Democrat or Republican, were totally against such relationships. Of course, there were notable exceptions. Thomas Jefferson, whose party would give birth to today's Democratic Party, tried to hide his. Radical Republican Newton Knight did not hide it. I highly recommend checking out his story in The Free State of Jones, or just watch Matthew McConaughey's movie by the same name. And then there was the great Frederick Douglass and Helen Pitts. But this pamphlet was actually fake news. It was written by managing editor David Gordman Crowley and reporter George Wakeman, both Copperhead Democrats, as an attempt to play on racial fears, stir up opposition to racial equality, and incite the public against Abraham Lincoln and the Republicans. They invented the word miscegenation by combining the Latin word miscere, to mix, with genus, kind, to give their work a scientifically credible sounding feel. They said Lincoln supported the policy position, even trying to trick him into signing it, which he did not fall for. I'm thinking Project 2025 here. The pamphlet was picked up and widely publicized by Democratic newspapers throughout the North. Republicans already had to convince the public about racial equality and emancipation. Copperheads hoped this blatant piece of false propaganda would be the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, proving too much radical change for the public to handle all at once, and ruin Republicans in the upcoming election. It was early in 1864 that it was discovered to be a forged policy position. But by then it was too late. Many Americans took it at face value, and it was one of the factors that cast the election in doubt for Republicans. Now, combine that with Only Men Could Vote, and the Northern men who supported Lincoln were off to war, thus Lincoln was in real trouble. How did he overcome this deficit? Absentee balloting. For the first time in U.S. history, absentee balloting was created for soldiers far from home so they could still vote even though they were off in service of their country. Except northern states controlled by Democrats in 1864 would not allow absentee balloting, again trying to prevent Lincoln from winning. Lincoln then had to convince enough military commanders in the field with units from Democratic states to furlough those soldiers for a few weeks so they could get home to vote. In the end, Lincoln won a second term, and we know how that term ended prematurely. But Republicans, as a party, would also overcome, with every president between Lincoln and FDR, except for Cleveland and Wilson, being a Republican. Now, that's not to say Republicans won at all. Following the Civil War, through terrorism and fraud, Democrats would take back enough southern states to turn Reconstruction into what historian Orville Vernon Burton called white restitution. But that's a different video. The point of today's video is for everyone to realize in America, as long as we hang on to our freedom of speech, the truth always eventually comes out. The best ideas rise to the top, and the people and parties that just want to cling to power are finally exposed. America has survived it before, will survive it again. But what do you think? Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.